Even with that local stuff.
Yeah.
So everybody stay dry about something?
Yeah.
Wasn't too bad.
Yeah, I spent much with. I thought it was I would put there.
They call it state of emergency, so.
Well, that's just means that all the things are ready to go.
Yeah, I know.
And it's actually, yeah. Otherwise, they're all graded.
That'll be a very big issue in the United States. They call it state of emergency, everyone thinking about horse attack.
Yeah.
We're in Auckland, so because
Anybody got flooded? Oh, that's good. You sent it first. Right. So today is the other side of MHIT602, which is user size. And this time around, this is science, so we are going to deal with numbers. We're going to do statistics. So it's different from the design approach, but still very valid. We'll again have lectures and hopefully lots of discussions. And there will be also project work where you will be asked to actually conduct user studies. So we're going to do, if my memory serves me correctly, 2 user studies. Which will be also graded. The grading scheme is on Learn, so you just have a look at different assignments and how they're weighted, both for the design and the user studies point of view. We still have a no screens policy, so please put all your phones and everything to silent. We don't want any distractions. I should include something in this. So I should put this to silent. Right. There are a couple of books that I would highly recommend you get your hands on. Measuring the user experience is probably a very important one. Handbook of user visiting as well. Cost justifying usability, yeah, it's a one of a kind thing in the sense that very often when you deal with usability, people will challenge you and say, okay, why should we do this? You know, it just costs money. So, you know, people are not, companies are not necessarily open to the idea of testing their products and services with people. And this book gives you all the ammunition you need to shoot back from a financial point of view. That's essentially outlines how you save money when you do actually this process. Don't make me think it's a very down-to-earth good guide to predominantly net usability, so it has a lot of essentially web pages and how they should work. It doesn't expand beyond that very much. So this is of course something that we observe is that usability is not just web pages, not just apps. You know, this is usability, right? The fact that you can turn it, right, and you know where to turn it, right? So
there's one book that I don't know if there's a teacher, but it's like one of her things. I'm sorry. It's kind of it's a bit similar to the Roman's thing. It's called the No Interfaces, the best interfaces no interface. It's very light read with lots of good examples. So like you know.
I don't know that particular one.
But it's pretty cool.
One of the typical problems that you have is soap dispensers. You know, when you go to the bathroom and there are many different soap dispensers, and the question is always how to operate this particular one, because there are many different ways of doing it. It's not always clear. So did you ever travel internationally and wear an airport and you like try to figure out how the soap dispenser works?
And the taps themselves too.
Faucets is
But they are medical not, so where you put it in it.
Yeah, so yeah, we've got this automatic ones now, where I think they promise to tell me some sort of infrared sensor, but it doesn't always work reliably, you just don't know where to put it.
Yeah.
there are issues with usability, not just with software, but it's a general problem. This is a problem, right? And a telephone, anything really, you know, how people, door handles, you know, can be challenging. And I've got some photos of that. I was once in New Zealand, it was in Amsterdam, and the door handles, it was for the bathroom, the door handles were so fancy that I had to put a label next to it, explaining how it works. And when you are at a point where you have to put instructions next to something that usually means that the design is not particularly intuitive.
Well, the important point there is it might be brilliant, but if it's something people aren't used to or looking for, they won't see it. So it might be technically better, but the users don't, it's not familiar enough to them.
Yes, so familiarity is one aspect of this, but yeah, it's also something which essentially Don Norman is talking about, which is something called affordances. So the idea is, just by the shape of things and how you design it, people automatically make guesses on how to use it. And the trick is indeed to design something so that it affords for certain type of interactions, and that's our task. So ideally, you don't have to learn it. You can just work it. A good example is, for example, a car. I mean, you can pretty much step into any car and kind of drive. You know, these are all different companies, all different models, and it still somewhat works. There's partly a matter of consent, so there's a consent. Steering wheel is here, brakes is here. You know, there's a consent that helps. But when it comes to adjusting the mirrors or adjusting the seat, you know, things again become quite different again. Yeah, so the design of everyday things is a classical book by Don Norman. He's written many other books since then, but this was kind of the starting point. And it's still a very, very good read. I highly recommend it. Information architecture for the World Wide Web is very interesting because it goes a little bit deeper into web design, not just, let's say, from the graphical point of view, but also on the information, how do you structure the information that you want to communicate, you know, creating taxonomies, navigation structures, you know, all of this is kind of treated in more depth in there. I find that quite interesting. So who has read Bad Science from Ben Goldacre? No? Okay. So Ben Goldacre is an author from the UK, and he's got a column, I think, in The Guardian, one of the big newspapers in the UK, where he talks about people pretending to do science. And it's a very, very entertaining read. And the reason why I bring it up here is that, in a way, this is a really, really good introduction on how to do science and what constitutes good science and what constitutes bad science. So, for example, what he's busy is that he's going after people who do science in a really bad way. So, for example, did you ever go to the pharmacy and you saw those big bottles of fish oil? Fish oil things? Do you think that helps?
Depends on what you got.
If there's omega-3 or whatever in it, actually in it, then it really has a big lot.
So what you observe is that there's a huge industry selling fish oil capsules, right? And of course they make all kinds of claims on the label saying it is good for you in whatever way. But when you look at the science behind it, you know, it becomes pretty thin. And there are one study that he's going after that was conducted that claims to have evidence that this would improve children's abilities in school. And essentially he takes the study apart and shows how the way they conducted the experiment just is not able to give you any good indication for this whatsoever. So he essentially dissects and takes apart, you know, studies that claim to have done something that they really haven't, and looking at bad science, you learn how to do good science. So that's a good thing. So again, very, very good read. Very, very interesting. Okay. Let's get started. Who's ever used one of these? And how was that?
Depends on the airport.
At least they're easy to line up to the counter.
Yeah, I rather did that and not a kid.
Oh, interesting.
It can be quicker, depending on the.
Honestly, think if you got bags to check in, but just seeing a person and giving them your bag and your passport,
You know,
and it's all done.
I think
That's easy. But if you have to just go through with hand on, just scanning something in there, and then grabbing a ticket and going, it's pretty good.
otherwise you have to double clear it anyway.
When you
It's, again, it depends on if I was at one place where you lined up, and then, no, you went to the third booth, and then it told you to line up anyway, and then you had to go back to some other booth. That was just a stupid process.
And the thing is that I don't think the older people would really reconsider going to the machine, and there's already they already have a ticket as in paper, and the only people that would kind of go for this thing are the people that would rather probably have an online ticket on their phone or like some code and they don't need it. They've already checked it on their phone.
So why do you think these things exist?
To cut jobs.
Or maybe the airline company looks like fancy.
Yeah, is it just a fact?
But I see people always fail on that because it's asking you to input some ID, like ID card, passport, something, and they have so many different readers down there, like I have one and this passport reader. I see people always confused get that. And they don't know which kind of ID to put into which kind of thing.
You have to say too much. You mean, just walk up to a person.
Yes, that's why they always
They
put
just
this-
tell you what,
Yeah.
or they just,
And that's why they always put the stuff standing by the machine, told you what to do, then what's the meaning of
I
the
find the
machine?
same with the self, I don't like going to the self-service at the supermarket, because then I have to think. Whereas if you're standing there and stuff, they do deal with it,
Yes.
they just tell you how much it is.
And the self-service annoying. Also too, can't do like 3 things at once.
It's a very nice experience to talk to somebody at the airport. They say, oh yeah, you tick everything's good. You can go over there.
Well,
Yeah, because you've either got your pre-booked it online already, and got your phone, or you've got to put your bags through, so you might as well walk up to the counter.
I mean, if you fly within New Zealand, you can indeed have the ticket just on your phone. And if you don't have to check in the bag, you can actually just go to the gate. That's all you need to do, which is kind of in a way convenient. But if you also have to check in the bag, you need a bag tag, which means you have to use the machine to print it. But yeah, I mean, I guess the main motivation for the airlines is cutting jobs.
that's you.
It's cheaper.
Is it faster throughput as well?
Well,
Or is it-
depends. I mean, it alleviates it, that's for sure. You know, more people that decide to go and use that, and then they only put 2 physical people on. But that's what they need to do, cut the jobs and reduce and just have like people staying around to help out when that goes wrong.
So this kind of self-service economy, where you put the people in charge of the transactions and they interact with the machine rather than the human, is unfortunately the reality. Right? So your job is to make sure that these machines actually work, and that's not easy. It sounds easy, but it's not. I mean, if you look at, let's say, these guys, there's a lot of buttons, spots, and what have you, right? And then the F-plus machine is completely separated. Yeah.
Only fail, and they have to be replaced. That's why they're probably not inside of the bigger machine. I've had them.
Yeah, but look at it. I mean, seriously, how many buttons, how many lights, how many slots,
Yeah.
how many things do you see?
And he's at the bottom and what's the one at the top?
Probably 8 different mechanisms.
Well, you see already they have like, they need to resort to labels, right? Notes in, coins in, receipts, sign below.
And there's a receipt out from the upper the lower right corner, and what's that slot in the middle for? Or buy a gift equals machine.
Yeah, there's the most prominent one
Yeah, it's
is not
full-
used.
not used.
The one that's front and center.
And with that, so the sign below, I suppose some sort of like touch pad where you can sign.
Yeah.
But you could also just do that on the screen, right? You could just take your finger and sign. Right?
Mm. Well, I think there's a stylus attached to it.
Yeah. Or if you have, again, a large touch pad like that, why do you need to have another machine next to it with buttons for the apples? Why could that not be on the same screen? Bigger, nicer.
I think it's because they're independent technology, like different companies. Of course, companies are different than the self-service machine.
I mean, usually they supply the actual terminals.
I think like the post machine is from the bank.
Yeah,
Like
they supply it.
it's not from the machine.
Yeah.
And maybe the one who designed machine thinks if the supermarket had like a supporting credit card, the bank must have already given them that post machine, so they just don't integrate into their own.
For a fee, of course, to use it.
It's like in the malls, those escalators that you put your supermarket trolley on. It's a different company that owns the escalator that owns the supermarket trolleys, and if someone has an accident, they don't know who's going to
It's,
I think part of it is about the rush to manufacture the technology. So when they put Mark 1 out on the shelf, they're in a rush to do it because they're competing with the other competitors. And so they're like, well, how can we make this work in a hurry? And they grab the Apple's machine, they grab the sign, but put everything together and stay together. And essentially we're looking at a prototype rather than the best solution.
Yeah.
Isn't New Zealand a bit of a gateway country with new technology as well? I've heard.
Yeah.
Because it's a small but highly westernized. So test things in.
Well, in any case, this is not necessarily the best way of doing things, right? And yeah, so I still prefer to put my goods on the belt and just talk to the person, and get my, what do they always say? You've been busy, busy day, and deal with that. I mean, still you have to use your cards and your loyalty cards and another scanner, and then there are 2 different scanners at least. And depending on how you pay, you may or may not have to sign. It also can become a bit complicated, but still, it seems to. But maybe not. The only time I ever use this is like if I have to buy one item. Because if you have a big stuff, actually, the biggest problem that I always have with these ones is if I will have a trolley full of stuff, then you're supposed to scan it and put it right next to it, right? And there's a scale on there, right? So it measures actually that, what you put on there. But if that thing is full, what then?
Yeah.
Right? And if you have a trolley full, of course you exceed that, and then there's no space to put it anymore. Then you have to ask for help because the systems cannot deal with that.
You generally do it for baskets rather than trolleys.
Not best, though. I mean, anything that you can just fit on the right side.
And then you have to know how to pack your bags, which is quite a skill.
Yeah, so I'm sure.
You don't want to put all your heavy stuff in your bags.
Well, then we've got this kind of situation where, people literally spend more time interacting and touching their phone than their friends or, let's say, their partner. So I dare you, I challenge you. Disagree with me on this. I bet you touch your phone more than you touch your partner. disagree?
I concur.
I think we're,
Yeah, singers.
Yeah. I think there was a Billboard cartoon, saying like, exactly that, like, I can always touch it, and never disagrees with me, it's a much better girlfriend.
unless you've got Siri on your phone, which is a bit rough.
That maybe just for levels of things.
Yeah. Who's seen
Yeah.
her? But if you haven't seen it, please watch it.
Really?
Yes.
It's good.
That's really good.
You think it's impressive?
No, I think it just
Yeah.
looks like the guy's retarded.
It's not really, it's just a bit sad.
I know.
But it's well played out. It's worth saying. I'll give you a list of things.
Well, this is certainly a movie, let's say a romantic movie. It's not a Arnold Schwarzenegger action movie. It's certainly not, quite the opposite. And it's all about a romantic relationship that this actor has with his phone, which is in his pocket, as you see there. But again, it just makes its argument that how related technology becomes stronger and stronger, and one of the biggest concerns is that we start indeed to have these social relationships with this technology, which makes us vulnerable to manipulation.
I think we like seek out relationships with technology because it's easier. You don't have to make yourself vulnerable. You're like interacting with the screen.
No,
Sorry,
you're
that's-
susceptible to like targeted advertising.
No, I know what you mean, but I think we initially go to the screen because it's less scary than actually interacting with people.
Yeah, I think we
Yeah, I
kind
agree
of
with that.
try to like relate to everything, it's like reflect and humanize things like our pets as well. So it's very natural to do this with technology as well.
I mean, we had it now. I just had somebody over, and they had to arrange for a pickup, around here, and they were texting each other all the time. Instead of just calling each other,
Yeah.
they rather spend 5 minutes texting than 1 minute talking.
And you clear it up quickly and talk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you have to text or email more than twice, you should be cool.
But it's less confrontational. You're sending messages and you can kind of like, I don't know, you can control like what you message.
And you can delay it.
So that's basically it. Yeah, you can delay it by doing that. So if you feel like hanging around for like a little bit, oh yeah, right outside now. Not.
Well, so, I mean, there are different forms of communications which are more or less synchronous. That's what it's all about. And you can send a letter, and then you don't expect a reply for at least a week. Or you can send an email, and you hope for it, get something back maybe the same day, but maybe the next day. But the message is like, yeah, you're supposed to reply within 10 minutes, and if not, the other person's cross with you. So,
Yeah, there's a whole new etiquette around text messaging.
so there are different forms of communication that have added disadvantages. As we see, I have to admit I'm not a big fan of texting. I kind of hate it because it's so silly. You just talk to people, which is much easier. So maybe it's just me, or maybe I'm just old-fashioned.
Do you like the FaceTime talking? You'll see them, I don't like that at all.
I like it.
Like they brought it out in the 60s or whatever, and they could have had FaceTime, video calling ever since the 60s, but A, it was too expensive back then, B, the fact that people had to get ready to do a FaceTime.
Doesn't matter what you look like.
Yeah. But then again, social etiquette's changed a bit as well. If you're calling someone for a FaceTime and that they're not ready, it's fine.
Well, for me, so indeed, video conferencing or video phone calling has indeed been developed for a long time. I mean, indeed, it's available very early on. But one of the major problems back then was that it was fixed to a certain location. It's like you have to sit down in front of it and you can't move. And what you've seen is, one of the first things that happened with telephones, that they have this really, really long cords that you can actually take the phone, go to your room. And then we have wireless, phones that you can. And so people wanted somehow to be not locked into the particular corridor where you normally would be, be located. Like the kids or the teenagers who want to go to their room and talk to their friends in there because they want privacy. Right? So having something like this in a corridor where you stand in front or sit in front and talk is just not the right way. Now these days, since we became mobile again, since our everything is in here, we're mobile again, so it became more popular again. And sometimes you just don't have a choice. I mean, my parents don't live in New Zealand, so if I want to talk to them, I'd actually much rather Skype them and see them than just having them in voice.
If Skype worked properly.
And you got these very, very interesting technologies coming up. And the reason why I brought this particular one up is that, Google Glass was in a way a success. It definitely was the first step in this direction. But then somebody came up with this word, and it kind of dragged the whole thing down. And this is very interesting because it was just socially not acceptable to have this, because people don't want to be videoed all the time. Right? It's just very offensive. If you were in a conversation with somebody and somebody would point a video camera at you and say we'll just have a casual conversation. Like, yeah, no, it's not going to happen, right? So the social acceptability was the main problem. And we even had another company who had integrated to sunglasses, right? And there was no indication about whether the person was filming it or no. So the social acceptability is an issue that needs to be considered when you develop technology.
But cell phones, when they first came out, and they had the great big ones, that was considered, you're a yucky, old cell phone, so fancy. And at some point it became more, because more people are used for them. Whereas I can't really think of the use of those things that would make life vision.
My view on the development of mobile phones was at the beginning they were so incredibly expensive that only really highly paid executives could afford it, right? And so it was a status symbol if you would own it. But once it became a commodity, it became a status symbol not to have them, because that means you actually have a secretary who handles all your contacts. So it's turned around. And these days, it became a race for who's got the biggest one. So this one was the first one. I mean, they grew and grew and grew, and this was the first one where you cannot use it just with one hand. I mean, they actually had to come up, and I'm not sure if you know this, but I can't reach all the way to the top of my thumb. It's too big. Right? The iPhones before, it was possible to reach with your thumbs. It's not possible to get up there. So they found this idea when you double click, the whole thing moves down halfway, so I can get there. And as far as I understand, the latest one, the iPhone X, doesn't have that functionality anymore. You can't get it down, which means there's no way you can operate it with just one hand. So, yeah, things change. Right. Let's do some activities. One of the main things that you need to learn is that tools, methods, how you can test products, software, services with people. And one of the problems is that one of the main things is that usually you observe the person to do it. Okay? So when they are at the self-checking counter, you just point a video camera there, and you just record what people do, and then later on you can look at analyzing what went wrong. But part of the problem with that is that you don't see or hear what's going on in people's mind, right? So if you were to put a camera, a counter, and you record, and you'll get a lot of observation, but the understanding why the person now did this or did that, is difficult to infer sometimes from the behavior alone. And therefore, one of the most commonly used methods in usability testing is called thinking aloud. And the idea is the following. You give someone a product, like a pen, and you ask people to give them a task. Let's say, let's disassemble this pen. And you encourage people to speak up their thoughts, right? And then while the person doing that, you essentially take notes and try to record all of that. Since almost all of you have a pen, let's do this exercise. Please split up into groups of 2, where one will be a person who has to disassemble the pen, and the other one will be the person to observe this. And you have to essentially focus on any kind of problems that the person has disassembling the pen. Okay? 5 minutes.
Do you want me to think that? Okay.
That's it.
But it's like, you're just assuming it and like, it's conscious.
So what do you think is useful? Why they need the string?
I got a reflex. But I'm telling you to buy a new pen. You want to use it again?
Maybe.
Yeah, I know that, right? I think we're next to side. Behind the scenes. You come up and just share it. I just put the again.
Actually, I took this from yeah. So I think you're assuming that we
Yeah.
always
I mean, like, I can't,
why would you make one? That's really not clear, because you don't really necessarily know what you're doing, you just kind of intuitively, subconsciously, but intuitively do it.
You're looking for someone who's like.
But you're asking the participant to analyze their actions.
No, you're to describe them. So you go,
Yeah, but you're assuming that they can describe it, and if they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
yeah, well, to a point. I mean, you can say, well, I'm twisting this and oh, it's
Yeah,
really
but you can even start off with, I'm looking for a place to assemble it.
Yeah.
No, you don't need to, that's the point, you just write, you just say, you're not anticipating what you might do or why you do just what you are. Yes. Yeah, exactly.
You know, there's a joint there, right?
They're looking for a joint. There are probabilities of one.
That's why it's a combination of what you see and what they say.
Yeah.
Because they might say, oh, I'm just doing clicking on the button, but what they've done is they've seen something.
Yeah.
But yeah,
It's
you're
a
right.
whole other stuff
But
going
you
on.
have to make so many assumptions about, like, this participant knows what they're actually doing on this.
You have to be aware of that.
Yeah.
You have to know what their demographic is, what their familiarity with before, all that stuff. You don't just do it blind.
If you're conducting a questionnaire, there's gonna be all kinds of people.
Yeah, so you have to know what kind of person this is.
Yeah.
So if they use the product, if they use a similar product,
So maybe a questionnaire. Yeah, but
Other example,
have you ever, like, if I was using the so have you ever used
it's not.
okay, no, when I'm saying not, but have you used a computer before you, so what are you experienced, you know, what level of technical ability, you know, you find this and first.
That might introduce bias.
Well, you need to know that.
No, but that might introduce bias because then they're like, okay, so this is similar to a computer. Yeah, that's usually isolating questions.
Ask me that after.
But the point is you have to know something, whatever the program is, doesn't.
Other children, it's better than children not assembly.
They've never done anything like that.
Even though children know how to program, they're using
The young kids love phones. We bring out old phones and they're fine.
Something about
The technology of it and like
Just because
yeah, someone dropped off.
Is anyone
All right, you all have your pens back together? Yeah. So you just said it took some time.
Yes.
So do you think this was designed well?
It's not designed to be pulled apart. But for some reason, you can pull it apart, so that's a question for me. Why it's not a sealed product. The design, yeah, very clear. I mean, the ability to have four colours in the P unit, so you're not very comfortable. And it pulled out, it's gone back together, and now when I press the pink one down, I can now draw on blue. When I press the blue one down, I can draw on pink, so it's a surprise. So quite proud of that.
So you made a mistake.
No, I did it deliberately.
No, not deliberately, but the point is, you were not able to assemble it back to its original functionality.
I could have, I chose to assemble it in different colours, so it was more interesting.
Ah, okay, turning the bug into a feature.
Just another feature to it.
What do you think about the task? Were you able to better understand what the person was struggling with because they were talking about it?
To an extent.
Yeah.
Like, I think you're assuming that the user has an understanding of what they're doing. And I think a lot of it's like subconscious. I don't think they really, like, I think they know to some degree what they're doing, but you're assuming that, yeah, they're actually thinking what they're doing. I think they're just doing.
The good guy.
Yeah, so indeed, this is from a psychological point of view, indeed an issue. If you ask people to think aloud, you actually ask them to think and to verbalize their thoughts. Whereas when they would do it, just do it, they might actually do it differently. Therefore, you do indeed introduce a bias. they have come up with a solution around that to help with that, and we'll talk about this a bit later. But indeed, asking people to speak out their thoughts pushes them towards rationalizing their decisions, whereas they might just, if you didn't do it, they would just do it differently. I brought another product with me, just to show you something else. So how do you think you open this?
What is it?
Oh, it's a watch. It's a So it's interesting, eh? That's an affordance, right? This whole thingy here, you can like, oh yeah, this is the one I have to grab, right? It opens up like this. Okay, the watch is not in there, unfortunately. So, what do you think about the presentation?
It would be nice if I was watching it.
I think it's pretty much unnecessary. For me,
Okay. So then, this comes off like this, and then you've got access to the watch, right? But even then, when it was in here, it has detach here, you know, and this whole thing comes out. Right? Quite elaborate.
And that's the part where people lose patience.
Not really. If you buy an expensive item, you want
And then
the last
oh, look at here. Even makes a little thingy to take it out. All of this for packaging. So why do you think they do that?
to make it an experience. Apple focus extremely on their packaging to make it a real premium experience, like from start to finish.
You just want to get the product and ship it.
Well, think of the packaging from the 90s. You know, you bought Nintendos and polystyrene and foam and whatever, and you pull out the box and it was crappy. The box looked crappy. Whereas if you look at that, that's like someone's actually put effort into it, and so it feels more valuable. And it's more premium, and you just look at the different components. It's also a bit of a tease because you're opening it, and it's, you know, you don't just get it straight away. You don't open the cereal box and then pull out the thing. You know, it's not like the kid looking for a bit of toy in the cereal.
So it's indeed, it's about the experience. You go through a whole process of opening it up, and it's, you know, the whole. This is not about what is the safest, fastest way to, you know, open the box and get a watch out. You know, there are much easier ways to accomplish that. But that is not the point here. The point here is to give, when you people have put all this money down and get this thing, and then they have like this 20 seconds experience of like, wow, now I'm unfolding. Right? And that sells. But coming back to usability in itself, there is actually an ISO standard for this. So it has become official, and these are the components of it. Whereas usefulness is defined as it allows the user to complete a task that this user actually wants to do. Effectiveness, of course, is it allows the user to do the right thing, task completion time. Efficiency is it allows the user to achieve the goal quickly. For example, task speed, doing things right. Learnability is part of efficiency, and that is how fast can you become competent in using the product. And interestingly, satisfaction, happiness to use the system. Here, this is satisfaction that you get out of it. If you think about it, a lot of games that we play, do you ever go to a children's birthday and then you put an egg on a spoon and you raise it? It's an incredibly inefficient way of transporting an egg. But that's not the point. The point is, you know, it's fun, right? So sometimes we make tasks difficult, so that they're fun. And of course, usability is only visible when it's absent. So if you've done your job, what you've done will be invisible nobody will notice it because people just do the things they want to do. So if you have like a big ego that wants to express itself and wants to be in the face of its of the people, then no, this is not the right way for you to design. It's like you want to be essentially invisible. So since we deal a little bit with computers, here are some. This was a computer, and keep in mind, this is the whole room, is the computer. And how do you think people interact with it?
Punch cards.
No, that came much later.
Oh. So it's switchboard.
Yes, you connect cables. And how do you think the output was?
Lights.
Light bulbs. Yeah, light bulbs would light up and you'd have to interpret it. Interesting way of sending an email. But of course, this was secured rooms operated by engineers only. All the way up here.
So punch card.
Mm-hmm.
That took me 10 years.
Well, so these punch cards had to be punched by an actual person, which is again not so nice. And then you would have a mechanism to read them in a stack. And then what do you think was the output?
Printer.
No.
Punch card.
There's another punch card.
Either punch cards or light bulbs.
It's amazing how much effort they put into it. Like it must have been a big presumed what's the word? Payoff. Considering the amount of effort in money that must have been.
Well, you all have to put into context into what was the option. I mean, when you did these computations, if you do them manually, it's even worse, right? So these things were never intended to send an email.
No, but I mean, up to that point, the launch happened. And suddenly they're investing all this money and time into this completely new technology.
1961.
The lights became smaller.
Well, this is the IBM Stretch 7030, and it was one of the first transistor-based computers. So they moved away from bulbs to transistors. But as you see, people on the side, how many shelves it took, it's considerable. This one I'm interested in, 1963.
First display.
Yes, that's one thing. But how do you interact with it?
Keyboard.
There's a keyboard and
Holding something.
there's a stylus pen. You could draw on the screen. 1963. That's quite something, huh? That's even Sutherland, who was one of the founders of computer graphics there in 1963.
Mouse.
This was the first mouse. 1963.
This is in zero, so it's military. How do you right
There's no way.
So the person who invented the mouse was called Douglas Engelbart. Jumping a bit forward, the Xerox Alto.
Well, they got the wrong way. The screen is going to be. It's actually going to be wide in the future.
And that's not a good thing. Einstein's brain really rotated. Because if you work on text documents,
Yeah,
it's so much better to have it this way. But again, mouse,
Big screens.
and you've got a big box under your desk. And that's, this can make any tapes for storage. Now, no, here we have the VT100. And the interesting aspect of this one, besides now having a keyboard and a screen, is that this was actually not a computer. This was a terminal. This was a terminal to a bigger computer. 1981, one of the most famous things, 1981. This now is the zero star, so this is essentially the birthplace of the modern desktop metaphor for computers. So they're the ones who came up with this idea of having a virtual desktop. And they used a metaphor, and they had windows, and menus. It was developed in zero star, and they invited Steve Jobs and the crowd in to make a presentation of this. And they took this idea and they ran with it. And so in 1983, we've got the Lisa, which essentially took all the ideas of the zero star and put it into a computer. And Xerox, of course, is no longer around for selling computers. They couldn't get out. It is kind of tragic. They came up with a really great idea, and they didn't bring it to the market.
No, if they did, we'd be pretty screwed at the moment, though. With all the GUI, because everyone be seeing each other over there, over the GUI.
Well, I mean, they would ask all sorts of what movies are writing. And then in 1984, we're essentially pretty much there that we consider a modern computer. And all the ingredients are there. And from 1984 to now, not much has changed. Nothing significant. Same metaphor, same elements, a bit more fancy, a bit more functionality, but nothing. Wow. Audible. There was a predecessor to the iPhone, which was called the Apple Newton, 1993. So who had one of those? So I had one of those, and it was amazing. And it even had a modem, you could dial in, you can, surf the web and send messages. Wow. Had quite a long battery life, had natural handwriting recognition. So you could just write on it and it would recognize it. Didn't work very well.
Yeah.
But the point being is, Apple was in the market with this way, way before everybody else, and they were just too early at that time. And when they came out in 2007 with the original iPhone, that's when the market was ready for it. But they had it pretty much, again, all the major components, everything in place in 1993.
But what did it in 2007?
Oh, it's just the name of it. Mrs. Special Power. It's just one of them. There were different versions of the Apple Newton.
How do you type on it?
So I had a virtual keyboard as it has right now, and that's one way. And it has a stylus where you could just write on it and it would have handwriting recognition. So there are two different ways to do it. So what has changed?
The April method.
Yes. Yeah, maybe 5 more minutes.
The light bulbs.
So one thing is that we moved away from engineers and scientists and experts using a computer to essentially everybody using computers. And it worked, and then moved away from a work environment to a home environment to like everywhere environment. So what makes a product less useful is, of course, if you focus only on the machine itself. If you at some point, at any point, expand the audience, or you don't clearly define the audience, who it is meant for. Engineers are not a highly trained people, and what seems logical to them does not necessarily mean logical to people who this is designed for. This is one of the major problems. Right? So that's why it's important to confront your end user essentially with the product that you produce. And what you see is that using design is further down the road you are in the development, the more expensive it becomes to make any kind of changes. And it means the best way to do usability is to start early, do tests early, even if the product is not yet ready. When the engineers will be saying like, oh, it's not ready yet, it's not ready, it's not ready yet. Well, so what? You can wither or some things, you can prototype certain things, test things, and then you can find mistakes and rule them out early on instead of waiting until the last minute when then the argument would be, well, yeah, okay, this is a problem, but it's too expensive to change, so we'll just have to go with it. It's not really useful. And there's a typical cycle that you go through of essentially using a design process where you start with what should it do, and how should it work, and then you test it again. Does it as it was intended? And then essentially go in circles as often as you can. So test early, test often. There are, roughly speaking, three main methods. There are formative, so-called methods, which are more, or another word for it is qualitative methods. They are more focusing on using methods from ethnography, focus groups, walkthroughs, and these kind of things. There are summative methods, which are also another word for it is quantitative. It's what you use to actually really start to measure things, like completion time or benchmarks against existing software, so you really measure things. And there's prototyping, so you can involve people even doing prototyping phases, and you can make really low fidelity and easy prototypes to test way before the product is being developed. I'm just wondering whether I should either stop now. Well, not just 3 more slides, just go through it. The main reason why we do tests is to inform the development team about problems and their solutions. Right? That's the main reason why we do this. And another reason is, of course, is again profitability. I mean, as I said, it costs justifying usability. If you go for this checkout machines at the supermarket, if you just save a second per customer in the transaction thing, and 100 people use it a day, it runs for years, you save so much time, right? So, or if instead of having one person there who has to correct and help people, you need 2 people because the system is so buggy that nobody can complete it by themselves, that increases costs again, right? So you really, really want to make it so easy that everybody can do it without any much problem. You can also use this to monitor progress. So for example, if you have an existing product, you want to improve it, and you want to improve it, and you want to improve it, you can essentially benchmark every step that you do to see whether have we actually improved our product or have we taken a step backward. And with these kind of things, the question about am I ever going to buy this product again? Well, this particular one, no. The reason is that Withings was bought up by Nokia, and essentially their hardware was the same, but they changed the software, and the software became pretty much unusable. They had a perfectly functioning software. The only thing they had to do was to exchange the logo. And what did they do? They started creating completely new software that was completely buggy and doesn't work. Incredible.
Do you know why?
They started from scratch.
That wasn't their development, so they didn't.
Yeah, who knows? It was working perfectly, and then they just screwed it up by redoing it.
And this was Nokia.
Yeah.
Well,
they're not new design decisions.
No.
Yeah. Oh, it does
But they
exist.
must have said
Like,
it
what
for
I
some
know,
reason.
the main company is now shut down, and like,
Well, Nokia was bought by Amazon and by Microsoft, but it is,
but
they still
the
exist.
still there. Like, for example, Berlin, they have a unit.
They still do things, and one of the branches they have is called Nokia Health, and they're trying to do all kind of health products, and that's why they bought up Withings, because that's what they're selling. But again, it's a perfect example of everything was working, only changed the logo. Instead, they went for a complete redesign, they obviously was done in a rush, and yeah, so I'm not going to buy that again. Yeah, so returns of investments is something that will always come up with your managers. They say, like, why should we do this? What do we get out of it? And there's all kind of reasons why it is, and there's towards the organization itself, inside but outside, as well as outside. So, for example, how much of a support hotline do you need? That costs money, right? So if you're able to cut back the calls by half, that's actually, you're winning money, essentially. And on the external side, that we obviously want increasing sales, but you can also reduce the cost of training and other aspects of it, so it will become worthwhile. So what we need to do by next week, Wednesday, is that you need to select a product and you're going to test. Right? And this could be an app, software, website, consumer product, your choice. Pick something that's close to your heart. Motivate your choice and describe the target audience, explain what usability you may expect. It's a text you have to write 500 words, put it directly into Learn by the deadline, and please read 3 chapters linked on Learn and watch the video. Okay? The last one we're not going to do. But if you want to, it's not a must, it's an encouragement. Since you've got phones with you these days at all times, be aware of your environment. And whenever you encounter something that is a usability atrocity, please take a picture or video to show it. Right? And then we can collect them, and every time we can share them and have a look at it and have a bit of giggle. Okay? So please pay attention to your environment and see where things are just not working.
Motivate your choice, that means say what motivated your choice, why you chose it.
Yeah, why did you pick that particular app, software, product? Later on, we will be using a software to prototype, and it would be good if you selected a product that can be prototyped in software. So I had one time a student who did snow chains, and that was really good, but the physical component of it was so important that you cannot prototype that on the screen. Right? Whereas, for example, this, you can easily prototype on the screen if you wanted to. Right? Again, it's not a killer thing, but later on, when we do the second test, we will ask you to redesign the product and then test again. So that's why I'm giving you this view out into the future. Okay? Any questions?
Yeah, that's supposed to be task 2. Because we're uploading a PDF, the logo will be 1. So
We've already done task 1.
Oh, this is task 1 of evaluation. And this is not an upload, this is just a text box where you just copy and paste text.
Task 1 of the
Yeah.
assessment.
Sorry?
This is the task one that will be evaluated.
Yeah, so what will and will not be evaluated is in Learn. Everything that's a G behind it is graded. Again, what we do is it's going to be stepping stones, right? So we're going to do a whole usability test, and this is the first step. There will be more steps to come. And this is just will be, you have to write a maximum of 500 words.
So you will write it on the Learn itself, so no uploading.
There's no upload necessary. If you want to first write it in another word editor and copy and paste it, fine. If you want to try directly in the text box, fine. I will probably write it and save it before I go to the web page, because the web page, can crash and then lose everything. It's not a good idea.
So you mentioned about the photo, if it takes that picture of the product.
Yeah, that's something else. That is something else.
The documentation is
just
It's
It's just a permission.
Yeah. So for that, if I'm not mistaken, I have set up a forum where you can upload these images and share them. I have to double check if that's active, but yeah.
So just wording.
Okay, all good. And let's get to it.